Tonight we're going to explore something simple, something you've seen countless times, but perhaps never really considered in detail. We're going to talk about why leaves fall in autumn. Have you ever stood beneath a tree in October and watched a single leaf let go? It doesn't fall quickly. It turns, it glides, it takes its time finding its way to the ground. There's something peaceful about it, something patient. Tonight we are going to understand why that happens, not in a complicated way, not in a textbook way, just simply, calmly, the way you might explain it to a friend on a slow walk through the park. We'll talk about what leaves do all summer long. We'll discover why trees decide to let them go. We'll learn about the beautiful colors that appear just before they fall. And we'll follow what happens after, when those leaves return to the earth and become part of something new. It's a gentle story, a story of cycles and seasons, of change that happens slowly, naturally, without force. So take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and let's begin this quiet journey together into the simple science of autumn leaves. Let's start at the beginning with the life of a leaf. Imagine a leaf in spring, brand new, unfurling from a tiny bud on a branch, soft and pale green at first, then deepening in color as the days grow longer and warmer. This leaf has a job to do. A simple job, really, but an important one. Every leaf on every tree is like a tiny factory, a solar panel, if you will. Its purpose is to capture sunlight and turn it into food for the tree. This process has a name, photosynthesis, but don't worry about the word. Just think about what it means. Photo, meaning light. Synthesis, meaning to make something, making something from light. Here's how it works, very simply. The leaf takes in sunlight through its surface, hundreds of thousands of tiny cells all working together. Inside these cells is something called chlorophyll. That's what makes leaves green. And chlorophyll is remarkably good at one thing, capturing the energy from sunlight. But sunlight alone isn't enough. The tree also pulls water up from the soil, through its roots, up through its trunk, along its branches, and finally into each leaf. That water travels through tiny tubes, so small you'd need a microscope to see them, but they're there, delivering water to exactly where it's needed. And there's one more ingredient, carbon dioxide. It's in the air all around us. We breathe it out with every breath, and leaves breathe it in through tiny pores on their surface, thousands of them, opening and closing like the smallest doors you can imagine. So now the leaf has everything it needs: sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and something remarkable happens. The energy from the sunlight breaks apart the water molecules. It rearranges the carbon dioxide, and slowly, steadily, the leaf creates sugar, glucose, simple food that the tree can use to grow, to build new branches, new roots, new leaves for next year. It's quiet work. You can't hear it happening. You can't see it with your eyes. But on a warm summer day, every leaf on every tree is doing this, silently, constantly, making food from sunlight, and as a bonus, as almost a gift to the rest of us, the leaf releases oxygen, the oxygen we breathe, the oxygen that fills the air on a summer afternoon. So when you walk beneath trees in summer, remember, those leaves are working, gently, peacefully, turning sunshine into life. All spring and summer long this continues, day after day. The leaves growing broader, stronger, the trees storing energy for the future. Everything is green, everything is active, everything is in motion. But then something changes. The days begin to shorten, the nights grow cooler, and the tree begins to sense that autumn is coming. And that's when the story of falling leaves truly begins. Why do we have seasons at all? It's a question worth pondering on a quiet evening like this. The answer is surprisingly simple, and it has to do with the way our planet moves through space. Earth orbits the sun. Once a year, we make that long journey around it. But here's the key. Earth doesn't sit up straight as it travels, it tilts. Imagine a spinning top that leans slightly to one side. That's us, that's Earth. We tilt at an angle of about 23 degrees, and that tilt, that gentle lean, is what gives us spring and summer, autumn and winter. When the part of Earth where you live is tilted toward the sun, you get summer. The sunlight hits more directly, the days are longer, the sun rises early and sets late. There's warmth, there's abundance of light. But as Earth continues its journey around the sun, slowly, gradually, your part of the world begins to tilt away. Not quickly, not all at once, but degree by degree, day by day. And the sun's path across the sky begins to change. In autumn, the sun rises a little later each morning. It sets a little earlier each evening. The daylight hours grow shorter. The angle of the sunlight becomes less direct, more slanted, weaker. And trees notice this. Trees don't have eyes, of course, but they have something perhaps even more remarkable. They can sense light. They can measure it in a way. Special proteins in their leaves and branches detect how much daylight there is, how strong it is, how long it lasts. Think of it as an internal clock, a calendar written in sunlight. As the days shorten in autumn, this clock tells the tree something important. Winter is coming, the cold season is approaching, the season when water freezes in the ground, when snow might cover the branches, when the air becomes dry and harsh, and the tree begins to prepare. Temperature plays a role too. Those cooler nights, the first hints of frost in the air. The tree can sense this as well. The chill is a signal, just like the fading light. Together, these signals, shorter days and cooler temperatures, trigger something deep within the tree, a kind of decision, an instinct written into its very nature, refined over millions of years of evolution. The tree begins to understand it's time to let go. Keeping leaves through winter would be dangerous. Those leaves would lose water through their tiny pores, water the tree can't replace when the ground is frozen. The weight of snow and ice on thousands of leaves could break branches. The leaves themselves would likely die in the harsh cold anyway. So the tree makes a choice, the wise choice, the choice that will help it survive until spring comes again. It begins to cut off its leaves gently, systematically, one by one. And this is where the real magic begins. This is where we discover just how elegant and careful nature can be. Let's talk about how a tree says goodbye to its leaves. The way a tree releases its leaves is surprisingly gentle, surprisingly precise. It doesn't simply let them die and fall away. No, it carefully, methodically prepares each leaf for departure. It's almost ceremonial in a way. At the base of every leaf stem, right where it connects to the branch, there's a special layer of cells. It's been there all along, actually, all through spring and summer, waiting, dormant. This layer has a name, the abscission layer, abscission, from a Latin word meaning to cut away. And that's exactly what it does. When the tree receives those signals we talked about, the shorter days, the cooler temperatures, it sends chemical messages throughout its structure. Hormones, we call them, traveling through the tree's tissues like whispered instructions. These hormones tell the cells in the abscission layer, it's time to activate, time to do the job you were designed for. And slowly, very slowly, those cells begin to change. The abscission layer starts to grow. The cells multiply and soften. They become weaker, more fragile. The strong connection that held the leaf to the branch all summer long begins to dissolve. Think of it like a perforation, like the dotted line on a piece of paper that lets you tear it cleanly. The tree is creating a break point, a place where separation can happen easily, naturally. But here's what's remarkable. The tree doesn't just abandon the leaf. Before the separation is complete, the tree does something important, something protective. It seals itself off. Right above the abscission layer, the tree forms a layer of cork cells, a protective barrier. This seal will remain after the leaf is gone, like a tiny scab over a wound. It protects the tree from disease, from bacteria and fungi that might enter through the opening, from losing precious water. The tree is taking care of itself, preparing for the gap that will be left behind. At the same time, something else is happening. The tree begins to withdraw resources from the leaf, all that valuable nitrogen, the proteins, the nutrients that took energy to create. The tree pulls them back, reabsorbs them, stores them in its branches and trunk and roots for the winter ahead. Nothing is wasted. Everything useful is salvaged. It's efficient, yes, but there's also something almost tender about it. The tree is reclaiming what it can before letting go of what it must. Day by day, the abscission layer grows weaker. The connection grows more fragile. The leaf is still attached, but barely. Just barely. This process doesn't happen all at once across the entire tree. Different leaves reach this point at different times. Some are ready early. Others hold on a little longer. There's variation, individuality, even among leaves on the same branch. And this is why autumn takes time. Why trees don't go from green to bare in a single day. Why you can walk past the same tree for weeks and notice it changing, gradually, steadily, leaf by leaf. Eventually, each leaf reaches that critical moment. The abscission layer is complete. The connection is as thin as can be. The leaf is held to the branch by almost nothing now. Just a few remaining cells, a thread, a whisper of attachment, and then a breeze comes along. Or the leaf's own weight becomes too much, or rain falls and adds just enough extra pull, and the leaf lets go. But before they fall, before that final release, something beautiful happens, something you've certainly noticed, even if you've never thought about why. The leaves change color, and that's one of autumn's most wonderful secrets. Green all summer long, the world is green. The leaves overhead, the grass below, the forest in the distance. Green everywhere. And then autumn arrives, and suddenly there's gold, there's orange, there's red and purple and bronze. Where do these colors come from? It seems almost like magic. But the answer is simpler than you might think. Those colors, most of them were there all along. Remember chlorophyll, that substance we talked about earlier? The one that makes leaves green and captures sunlight? All summer long, chlorophyll is so abundant, so dominant, that it masks everything else. It's like a green curtain covering a window. You can see what's behind it. But when autumn comes, when the tree begins preparing to drop its leaves, the chlorophyll breaks down. The tree stops making new chlorophyll, and the chlorophyll that's already there, it's a fragile molecule, really. It begins to decompose, to fall apart. And as it does, the green color fades, slowly at first, then more rapidly. And as the green fades away, other colors begin to emerge, colors that were hidden underneath all along. The first colors to appear are usually the yellows and oranges. These come from pigments called carotenoids. Carotenoids, the same pigments that make carrots orange, that make corn yellow. They've been in the leaves all along, working alongside the chlorophyll, capturing different wavelengths of light, helping with photosynthesis in their own way. But the green was so strong, so overpowering that you couldn't see them. Now, with the chlorophyll gone, they shine through. Imagine it like this. Imagine a room with a bright green light that's been on all summer. And beneath it, there are candles burning, yellow candles, orange candles, but you couldn't see their warm glow because the green light was too strong. Now someone turns off the green light, and suddenly there's the candlelight, gentle, golden. It was there all along. That's what happens in an autumn leaf. Different trees have different amounts of these carotenoids. That's why some trees turn brilliant gold, like aspens and birches, while others become soft yellow, and still others show more orange tones. It depends on the recipe, the particular mix of pigments that each species carries in its leaves. But then there are the reds and the purples and those deeper, richer colors. Those are different. Those are actually new. Red and purple colors in autumn leaves come from pigments called anthocyanins. And here's what's fascinating. The tree actually makes these, creates them fresh, right there in the leaf during autumn itself. Why would a tree spend energy making new pigments in a leaf it's about to drop? It seems wasteful, doesn't it? But there's a reason. There's always a reason in nature. Scientists believe, and this is still being studied, still being understood, that anthocyanins act like sunscreen. They protect the leaf during those final weeks. You see, even though the tree is withdrawing nutrients from the leaf, even though it's preparing to let go, there's still work being done. The tree is still reclaiming nitrogen and proteins, still pulling valuable resources back into its branches. And that takes time. During this time, on bright sunny autumn days, the leaf could be damaged by too much light. Without all that chlorophyll to use the light energy, the light could actually harm the delicate process of nutrient recovery. So the tree makes anthocyanins, red and purple pigments that absorb the excess light, that shield the leaf, that buy the tree a little more time to salvage what it needs, its protection. Insurance, a final act of care for a leaf that's about to be released. Not all trees make anthocyanins, and even on trees that do, the amount varies depending on the weather. Bright sunny days and cool nights, those conditions encourage more anthocyanin production, more red. That's why some autumns are more brilliant than others. Why the same tree might be scarlet one year and merely orange the next. It depends on the weather, the temperature, the sunlight. Each autumn is unique. There are other colors too sometimes. Browns and tans. These usually come from tannins and waste products left behind in the leaf. Not as dramatic as the reds and golds perhaps, but part of the palette nonetheless, part of autumn's gentle variety. So when you see an autumn tree, a maple blazing red, an oak glowing bronze, a birch shimmering gold, you're seeing a combination, a layered artwork, yellow and orange that were hidden all year, red and purple made fresh for protection, brown from what's left behind, and the green gradually fading, like a memory of summer slowly dissolving. Every leaf is different. Every tree is different. Even leaves on the same branch might show different colors, depending on their exposure to sun, their age, their particular chemistry. It's variation, it's complexity, it's nature painting with every color in the palette just before letting the canvas fall. And then, when the colors have done their work, when the abscission layer is complete, when everything is ready, the leaf falls. Let's talk about that moment, that gentle descent. There's something mesmerizing about watching a leaf fall. You've probably done it, stood beneath a tree on a quiet October day and watched a single leaf make its journey down. It doesn't fall like a stone. It doesn't drop straight to the ground. It does something more graceful than that. When the final connection breaks, when the abscission layer finally separates completely, the leaf becomes free, subject only to gravity and air. Gravity pulls it downward, of course, always downward, but the air pushes back. A leaf is light, remarkably light, and it has a large surface area compared to its weight. When it falls, it pushes against the air molecules below it, and those air molecules resist. They create drag, resistance. This is why a leaf falls slowly, much more slowly than something compact and heavy. But there's more to it than that. The leaf isn't perfectly flat. It's not a perfect rectangle or circle. It has veins, curves, an irregular shape, and as it falls, the air flows around it in complex ways, unpredictable ways. One side might catch more air than the other. The leaf tilts, tips, turns, and then it spirals. Watch a falling leaf closely sometime. It doesn't just drift straight down. It spins, it corkscrews through the air, rotating as it descends, first one way, then the other. This happens because the leaf is slightly unbalanced. The stem is heavier than the blade. One side might be drier than the other. These tiny differences create uneven forces, and so the leaf tumbles, twirls, dances its way down. Sometimes a breeze catches it, carries it sideways. A leaf might travel 10 feet, 20 feet from where it started, gliding on a current of air, riding an invisible wave. Other times, on a perfectly still day, the leaf might fall more directly, but even then it takes its time, swaying, rocking, like a feather floating on water. If you could slow it down, watch it frame by frame, you'd see the air flowing over and under the leaf, creating tiny vortices, whirlpools of air that spin off the edges. These vortices push and pull on the leaf, making it wobble, making it turn. It's physics, but it looks like choreography. And eventually, after seconds that feel much longer, the leaf touches down. Sometimes it lands flat, sometimes on its edge. Sometimes it catches on the ground and tumbles once more before settling. And there it lies, still, done falling, having made that final journey from branch to earth. But here's something wonderful to consider. In a forest, in a park, on a tree-lined street in autumn, this is happening constantly, thousands of times, millions of times. Every tree releasing its leaves, every leaf taking its own unique path down. Some fall in the morning when the air is still, others in the afternoon when the wind picks up. Some fall in groups released by a gust, others fall alone, one at a time. In the quiet, no two leaves fall exactly the same way, even from the same tree, even in the same moment. Each fall is unique. Each descent is its own small event, its own tiny story of letting go. And after they fall, after they come to rest on the ground, their journey isn't over, not at all. In fact, something entirely new is about to begin. Picture a forest floor in late autumn, covered in leaves, layers upon layers of them. Red and gold and brown, slowly fading to brown, all mixed together. It might look like the end of something, but really, it's the beginning. Those fallen leaves are food, not for the tree anymore, but for the soil, for the ground itself. And countless tiny creatures are waiting. Within days, sometimes within hours, the work begins, invisible at first, microscopic. Bacteria land on the leaf surface. Fungi send out tiny threads thinner than spider silk that creep across the leaf and burrow inside. These organisms are decomposers, that's what we call them. But really, they're recyclers, transformers. They take what was once alive in one form and turn it into something else. The leaf you see is made of complex molecules: cellulose, lignin, proteins, sugars, things that took energy to build, things that contain nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, minerals the tree pulled from the soil months ago. And now those nutrients are coming back. The bacteria and fungi produce enzymes, chemical tools that break down the leaf structure bit by bit. They dissolve the cell walls, break apart the complex molecules into simpler ones. And as they do this, as they work, they release nutrients back into the soil. It's slow, gradual. A leaf doesn't disappear overnight. In fact, if you visit that same spot in the forest weeks later, you'll still see leaves. But if you look closely, if you pick one up, you might notice it's changed. It's softer, more fragile. Bits of it crumble in your fingers. The fungi have been at work. The bacteria have been busy. Come back in spring and many of those leaves will be gone. Not vanished, but transformed, broken down into humus, that dark, rich, crumbly substance you find when you dig into forest soil. That earthy smell, that's the smell of decomposition, of transformation, and that humus, that's some of the most fertile material on earth. But it's not just bacteria and fungi doing this work. There are larger helpers too. Earthworms, quiet, patient creatures that live in the darkness beneath the surface. They come up at night when the air is cool and damp and drag leaves down into their burrows. They eat the leaves, digest them, and what comes out, their castings we call them, is even richer than what went in. Earthworms are constantly mixing the soil, aerating it, enriching it. They're gardeners in a way, tending the ground without knowing it. There are millipedes too, and pillbugs, and springtails, tiny insects you'd barely notice, hopping through the leaf litter like microscopic kangaroos, mites, beetles, an entire community of creatures, most of them smaller than your fingernail, all living in and on and under those fallen leaves. They all eat, they all break things down, they all contribute, and slowly, month by month, season by season, those leaves become soil, become earth, become the very ground from which new life will grow. Think about that for a moment. The leaf that unfurled in spring, that captured sunlight all summer, that turned gold or red in autumn, that fell and spiraled to the ground, that leaf becomes soil. And from that soil, next spring the tree will draw nutrients, will pull nitrogen up through its roots, will use those very same molecules to build new leaves, the same atoms, the same elements, just rearranged, just in a new form. It's a circle, a cycle. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. Everything flows from one form to another and back again. Leaf to soil, soil to tree, tree to leaf, around and around. And this happens not just with one leaf, but with billions, trillions, every autumn all over the world, wherever deciduous trees grow. A great falling, a great returning, the trees letting go, the earth receiving, and in that exchange, life continues. The leaves don't just feed the trees that dropped them either. They feed everything, the ferns growing nearby, the wildflowers waiting for spring, the seedlings just beginning their lives. The entire forest ecosystem is nourished by this autumn gift. Even the creatures that live above ground benefit. Birds scratching through leaf litter for insects. Small mammals finding shelter beneath the layers. The leaves provide habitat, protection, insulation against the coming winter cold. A single fallen leaf is part of something so much larger than itself. But not all trees drop their leaves, do they? Not all trees participate in this autumn cycle. Some trees stay green all winter long, and there's a reason for that too. A different strategy, a different way of surviving. Let's talk about that. Walk through a forest in winter and you'll notice something. Most trees are bare, branches stark against the sky, but some are still green. Pine trees, spruce, fir, cedar, their needles still attached, still dark green, still very much alive. Why don't they drop their leaves like the others? Well, they do actually, just not all at once, and not every year. These trees, the evergreens we call them, they've chosen a different strategy, a different way of handling the seasons. Their leaves, their needles are built differently. They're tougher, thicker, coated with a waxy layer that helps them retain water. They're designed to last, to endure. An evergreen needle might stay on the tree for 2 years, 3 years, sometimes longer. And when it finally does fall, it's replaced gradually. A few needles here and there throughout the year. Not all at once in a great autumn release. This approach has advantages. The tree doesn't have to spend energy growing a completely new set of leaves every spring. It can start photosynthesizing earlier in the year as soon as the weather warms. It's always ready. But there are trade-offs. Those tough, waxy needles aren't as efficient at photosynthesis as the broad, thin leaves of deciduous trees. They capture less sunlight per unit of area. They work more slowly. It's a different strategy. Not better or worse, just different. Deciduous trees, the ones that drop their leaves, they've made a different choice. Invest everything in summer. Grow thin, efficient leaves that capture as much sunlight as possible during the warm months. Photosynthesize rapidly, store up energy. Then, when winter comes, let it all go. Shut down, rest completely, wait for spring. It's a boom and bust strategy, feast and fast, all or nothing. Which strategy works better depends on where you are. In cold climates with harsh winters, both strategies work. You'll find evergreen forests in the far north, but you'll also find deciduous forests that lose their leaves completely. In temperate regions, places with moderate winters, deciduous trees often dominate. Their leaves give them an advantage in the growing season that outweighs the cost of replacing them every year. In tropical regions, things get interesting. In places where it's warm year-round, where there's no real winter, many trees don't drop their leaves at all, or they drop them gradually, a few at a time, replacing them continuously. But even in the tropics, some trees have a leaf-dropping season, not triggered by cold but by drought. In places with distinct wet and dry seasons, some trees drop their leaves during the dry season to conserve water, just like temperate trees drop theirs in winter to prepare for cold. It's the same solution to a different problem. There are even tropical trees that drop their leaves all at once, not because they must, but because it gives them an advantage. They leaf out together all at the same time, which overwhelms the insects that might eat them. There aren't enough caterpillars to devour all the new leaves at once. It's a strategy, a survival technique, timing as protection. And then there are trees that seem to exist in between. trees that hold on to some of their leaves through winter, dead brown leaves that cling to the branches even though they're no longer alive. Oak trees sometimes do this, beech trees too, especially when they're young. Why? Scientists aren't entirely sure. Perhaps those dead leaves provide some protection to the buds beneath them. Perhaps it's simply that the abscission layer doesn't finish forming before winter arrives. The tree will drop them eventually, in late winter or early spring when new growth begins. It's a quirk, a variation in the pattern. Even among deciduous trees, the timing varies. Some trees are early droppers. Their leaves turn and fall in September. Others hold on until November, even December in some cases. Each species has its own schedule, its own internal timing, refined over thousands of generations to match its particular needs and circumstances. And individual trees vary too. The tree on the sunny side of the street might drop its leaves before the one in shade. The tree in the valley might hold its leaves longer than the one on the hilltop, where it's windier and colder. Every tree responding to its own specific environment, its own particular set of signals and conditions. There's no single right way, no single right time, just countless variations on a theme. Countless ways that different trees have found to survive, to thrive, to balance growth and dormancy, risk and safety, investment and conservation. But for all the trees that do drop their leaves, for all the deciduous trees preparing for winter, the result is the same. They stand bare, exposed, waiting, and in that bareness, in that apparent emptiness, there's a kind of wisdom. Let's talk about that. A bare tree in winter might look vulnerable, naked, exposed to the wind and cold with nothing to protect it, but actually, the tree is safer this way, more prepared, more protected than it would be with leaves still attached. Think about what winter brings: freezing temperatures, ice, snow, wind that howls and pushes and pulls. If the tree still had thousands of leaves, broad, flat surfaces catching all that wind, the force would be tremendous. Branches would break under the strain. The weight of ice and snow on all those leaves would snap limbs, possibly damage the tree so severely it might not recover. But bare branches, they offer little resistance. The wind flows around them, through them. The snow might pile up on the branches, yes, but without all that extra surface area, the weight is manageable. The tree has made itself aerodynamic, streamlined, ready for the storms ahead. And there's another reason losing leaves helps: water. In summer, leaves are constantly losing water through those tiny pores we talked about. Transpiration, it's called. Water evaporates from the leaf surface, pulls more water up from the roots, keeps everything flowing. It's part of how trees cool themselves, part of how they function. But in winter, the ground freezes. The water in the soil turns to ice, and the tree can't access it anymore. Imagine having thousands of leaves still attached, still losing water into the dry winter air, but no way to replace that water. The tree would desiccate, dry out from the inside. It would be like dying of thirst while standing in a frozen lake. So the tree drops its leaves, reduces its water loss to nearly zero. The bark is thick enough to prevent most evaporation, and the buds, those tiny packets of next year's leaves and flowers waiting on every branch, they're sealed tight, protected, waiting. The tree enters dormancy, a kind of sleep, not true sleep, of course. The tree is still alive, still breathing in a way, still carrying on the minimal processes necessary for life. But everything slows down, dramatically. The sap, that liquid flowing through the tree's vessels, it becomes more concentrated, more sugary. Like antifreeze in a car engine, it resists freezing. The tree's cells adjust their chemistry, their internal composition, to withstand temperatures far below what would normally kill them. It's preparation, adaptation, the tree making itself winter hardy. And in this dormant state, the tree doesn't need food, doesn't need to photosynthesize. It lives off the sugars and starches it stored during summer. Energy reserves tucked away in the roots, in the trunk, in the branches. All that work the leaves did, all those months of capturing sunlight. This is what it was for. To store enough energy to last through the months when growth isn't possible. The tree is waiting, patient, enduring. Outside, the world might be frozen and harsh, snow might fall, temperatures might plunge far below freezing, but inside the tree, deep in its core, there's warmth enough, life enough, resilience enough, and those buds, those tiny bundles wrapped tight against every twig, they're already formed, already containing next spring's leaves in miniature, waiting for the signal, waiting for longer days and warmer temperatures to tell them it's safe now, it's time to grow again. The tree doesn't fight winter, doesn't struggle against it, it accepts it, adapts to it, lets go of what it must, conserves what it can, and waits. There's a kind of wisdom in that, a kind of intelligence that doesn't require thought. The tree knows, not with a brain, but with something deeper, that this is temporary, that winter will pass, that spring will return, and so it waits, bare and still, silent and strong, and when the time is right, when the earth warms and the days lengthen, it will begin again. New leaves will unfurl, green will return, the cycle will continue. But for now, in the depth of winter, the tree rests, energy conserved, water retained, ready to endure whatever the cold months bring, stripped down to essentials. Nothing extra, nothing wasted, just waiting. And that brings us to the end of our journey. From the first unfurling of spring leaves and through the busy work of summer, to the colors and falling of autumn, and finally to the bare, patient waiting of winter, the cycle of the leaf, simple, elegant, perfect in its way. So now you know, now you understand why leaves fall in autumn. Not just because it's cold, not just because it's time, but because the tree is preparing, protecting itself, letting go of what it cannot keep so that it can survive to grow again. There's something beautiful in that, isn't there? Something we can learn from, perhaps. The tree doesn't cling to its leaves when the season changes. It doesn't fight the inevitable. It senses what's coming, and it prepares. It lets go gracefully, systematically, one leaf at a time. And those leaves, they don't disappear. They don't waste away into nothing. They return to the earth. They become part of the soil, part of the cycle. They nourish what comes next. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. Every autumn this happens. Trees all over the world releasing their leaves. Millions of leaves. Billions of leaves. Each one spiraling down in its own unique way. Each one landing where it lands. Each one slowly, quietly becoming something new. It's been happening for millions of years, long before humans walked the earth, and it will continue long after we're gone. There's something comforting in that, in knowing that nature has these rhythms, these patterns, These cycles that repeat year after year, reliable as sunrise, certain as the turning of the seasons. Spring becomes summer, summer becomes autumn, autumn becomes winter, and winter always becomes spring again. The tree knows this, not with thought, but with something deeper. An understanding written into every cell, every branch, every root. Let go when it's time. Rest when you must. Wait patiently. Trust that growth will return. And so the leaves fall, gently, quietly, one by one, red and gold and orange and brown, spiraling, floating, landing soft, becoming earth, becoming soil, becoming the foundation for new life. I hope this has helped you understand. I hope it's given you something peaceful to think about, or perhaps helped you stop thinking altogether, helped you drift, helped you rest. The leaves have fallen, the tree is at peace, and so perhaps are you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Sleep well.